community advisory board for them now. I also am part of a group called Hawaii Alliance on Cannabis Reform, which is focused on adult use legalization. I'm a member of Americans for Safe Access and Drug Policy Alliance, and I'm a professional advisory board member of the Epilepsy Foundation of Hawaii. I've been a guest lecturer all over the place, but most recently with the Department of Health's Office of Medical Cannabis Control and Regulation, and with my alma mater, UH Manoa School of Nursing. And for the last 11 years, I've been an active member of the American Cannabis Nurses Association. I've been serving as the chair of the Education and Research Committee. And we are affiliated with affiliate of American Nurses, whatever that says. So in order to be a patient in Hawaii's program, you have to have a qualifying condition that's on the list. And that includes, what I'd like you to look at are how different some of these are from each other. So AIDS or HIV positive status, ALS, cancer, glaucoma, lupus, multiple sclerosis, muscle spasms, nausea that's severe pain, which is what about 82% of our 30,000 patients in the program use it for, PTSD, seizures, wasting syndrome, and now new legislation last year allows primary care physicians to decide which patients might benefit from being certified. So this is, but why is it that cancer can be used to treat so many different conditions? Well, the answer lies within your own body. So in 1992, researchers discovered the Endo Cannabinoid System. And it turns out it's the master controlling system of your body. It controls all these 11 other systems. So that's your skeletal, muscular, nervous, endocrine, cardiovascular, respiratory, digestive, urinary, lymphatic, reproductive, and integumentary, which is your skin. So there are a couple of ways you can say this. One of them is endocannabinoid, and you might also hear other people saying endocannabinoid. And both of those are right, but for now, let's just call it ECS and make it easy on me. So who has an ECS? Well, anything that has a spine, so all vertebrates, that's all mammals, you and your pets. It also includes amphibians, reptiles, birds, and fish. And that's a drug-sniffing dog, a happy drug-sniffing dog. So this system produces two neurotransmitters, and one of them is very similar to THC, and it behaves very much like THC. But there are three main parts to this system. They're the enzymes that make and break these neurotransmitters, and which are called endocannabinoids, and then the receptors that they bind to. So all those three together are the endocannabinoid system. I mean ECS. So, and yes, it was named after the plant Cannabis sativa. But you can consider these to be your cannabis factories. So the two main endocannabinoids, we can just call them 2-AG and AEA. And the AEA is your body's THC. It's your bliss molecule. The name anandamide is Sanskrit for supreme bliss or yogic joy. And we think that this is the chemical that's responsible for the runner's high. The 2-AG is most abundant in the brain, like 100 to 1,000 times more than the AEA. And it's related to alertness. These levels are higher during the day and lowest at mid-sleep, whereas the AEA levels are higher at night and help induce deep sleep, which is considered to be the most healing phase of sleep. It plays a prominent role in pain perception and decreasing pain and inflammation. Both of these are present in all phases of your life. So it's a fluctuation of levels of AEA are essential in implantation of the embryo in the uterus. And both of these are found in early stages of human embryonic development. So at 14 weeks of gestation, the receptors can be found, and at 20 weeks, we start seeing activity in the brain in them. They're likely important in the maturation of both the nervous system and your immune function. So both of these are also present in mother's breast milk. And we think it's likely activating the oral motor or rooting and sucking reflexes, but also the newborn's appetite. So if you've seen a blissed out baby, this is probably the reason why. So both of these can be overproduced or deficient in certain disease processes. For example, we see deficiencies in patients with autism and epilepsy, in inflammatory bowel syndromes, with migraines, with Parkinson's, and PTSD, and some cancers. Whereas we see an overproduction in endometrial cancer, in obesity, and also schizophrenia. But remember, these are neurotransmitters, so you need receptors for them to bind to. And these are the endocannabinoid receptors. Fortunately, only two main types you need to remember. Well, you don't really need to remember, but good to know. And they're found in nearly every cell in your body, in the walls, in your neurons, and in your mitochondria. They're called CB1. This is your nervous system, so your brain and your spinal cord mostly. It controls what's called GABA and glutamate neurons. It controls a new system. Well, it's a system that I just learned about because I was studying the endocannabinoid system. There's a system in your brain called the glymphatic system. Have you ever heard of that? It was new to me. It's it's your waste management program for your brain, and it only works when you're in certain stages of sleep. And it's the cleanup crew, and it works with the endocannabinoid system. They coordinate efforts to come in and do waste management on your spinal fluids and interstitial fluids and glial cells. So anyway, CB1s are primary nervous system and also in your digestive system. So you can think of this as your food, mood, and brain-gut connection. So it includes your vagus nerve. It includes serotonin production. Most of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So let's look a little bit more at CB1, why these are important to know, actually. These might be altered in adults with a history of childhood trauma. These are the receptors that coffee binds to. These are the receptors that your endocannabinoids, the AEA and the 2-AG bind to. Also THC and kava to create the euphoria or relaxation, and also the runner's high. This helps control sleep, anxiety, and depression, and help reduce pain and muscle spasms. Cannabis can't cause overdose deaths because of these receptors, because there's almost none of them in your breathing center, in your midbrain. There are very few of them, whereas opioid receptors are very prominent in those. So the lethal dose was determined back in the 1990s when scientists strapped gas masks on monkeys and piped in enough cannabis smoke to essentially asphyxiate them. So the lethal dose that they came up with was 1,500 pounds smoked in 15 minutes. I call it the smoke in a monkey study. But this is also the original study that showed that cannabis can cause brain damage. So the next ones are CB2. Those are found primarily in your immune system. So everything, immune system, B cells, T cells, spleen and tonsils, your bone marrow, your lymph, and your skin. These are responsible for cancer cell surveillance and regulation of inflammation, both pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory. And there's not very many of them in the brain until your brain is injured. If you have a stroke or concussion, we start seeing increases in these in the brain. And when they're activated, they can help switch over from a pro-inflammatory state to an anti-inflammatory state. So very cool, very cool receptors to learn how to stimulate. And you can do that with food. or cannabis. So the ECS has a very unique neuron-to-neuron signaling system, and it's called a retrograde system. So instead of just one neuron firing and then the next neuron takes the message across to the next one, the first neuron fires, the second neuron turns around and says, what endocannabinoids do I need to form to create a certain effect? And they do this on demand, where they're needed and when they're needed. They're not stored anywhere. The goal of this is homeostasis in every system of your body. And it's not like flipping a light switch. Think of it more as a gentle nudge in a direction. So we talked about your ECS, and let's talk about why it's important to keep it healthy. Because it controls every other system of your body, and it also plays a prominent role in pain management. It can get overwhelmed by a lack of exercise or sleep, or an unhealthy diet that has a lot of inflammatory foods, and even psychological stressors can stress it out. So keeping it healthy is important because it's key to health. And we need to think of cannabis as integrative medicine. It's not a standalone treatment. You need to integrate it into your lifestyle, into your activities, and using food as medicine. And you might find that you need less cannabis if you can keep your endocannabinoid system toned up, then you might not need as much medicine. So here are some activities that can help enhance your endocannabinoid system. Electroacupuncture is one of those. Your ECS helps release the opiates, so reducing pain and inflammation. So it works together with your opioid receptors. Osteopathic body work. This is just one small study, and it's old, but it showed an increase of AEA, your body's THC, by 168%. The other things that might help are mindful meditation, stress reduction of all sorts, like massage, and social contacts, because your ECS mediates your oxytocin release. I think it's called the love molecule. I think that's what I've heard it called. So social bonding, get out there in the low E and get your therapy. Social bonding through spiritual connection, like the Rastafari, the ganja, which is the sacred herbal medicine from the tree of life. And I fully agree with Bob Marley that the herb is the healing of the nation and alcohol the destruction. Yeah. And ganja has a ancient, long-term connection with yoga in India. Both are considered to be gifts from the Hindu god Shiva. And remember that anandamide is Sanskrit for yogic bliss. So direct reference to that. So you can get some natural pain management with exercise or singing, as it turns out. So habitual exercise can increase your pain tolerance. The suggestion is that everybody have 30 minutes of moderate exercise a day, 5 days a week, which is not really realistic for most people. But, do what you can. Any amount is probably valuable. But what it showed was that this activated the ECS, induced analgesia, so pain relief, and some sedation. And they found that effect was enhanced at altitude. So going up in the mountains for a hike, the study showed that it could increase your AEA levels, your body's THC. It also needs to be stressed that the activity needs to be enjoyable. Forced exercise doesn't have the same effect. It's a different kind of stress. But even a brisk walk can be helpful. Tai Chi has been shown to improve sleep and relieve pain and inflammation. And singing, this is my favorite one because, well, I'm a singer and I love singing. But this is a very small study, but I'd like to quote it anyway, that singing raised anandamide levels by 42%. So again, habitual exercise, helping increase pain tolerance. We think it's responsible for the runner's high, we're pretty sure, and also the swimmer's high. And I talked to some surfers who said they get high out there. So it could be a built-in reward system so that we do exercise. Oh yeah, and there's my mermaid friends. So sleep is a really essential part of, well, life, but especially pain management programs. And remember I told you about the glymphatic system, which is your brain's waste management system and cleanup system. Well, it turns out it only works when your brain is in stage 3 of non-REM sleep. But it works together with the ECS to control bringing in supplies and coordinating all of the efforts of the work. And it's driven by cerebral spinal fluid and glial cells. And I don't know why, I'm just fascinated with it, but I'm fascinated with the endocannabinoid system anyway. So that's it for activity. So now let's look at diet. What can you do? So Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said a couple of wise things. One, that all disease begins in the gut, and let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. And there might be some truth to that. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. Fats matter a lot. We need to talk about fats. Both of your endocannabinoids, the AEA and the 2-AG, they're made from the omega-3 and 6 fatty acids, but in the right ratio. Our diets tend to have too much of the omega-6 and cause inflammation and overwork your ECS. So we see that this is related to different disease processes like autoimmune disorders such as lupus, diabetes, and multiple sclerosis, in fibromyalgia, with cardiovascular disease, lung disease, gastrointestinal issues, and certain cancers. And we have emerging evidence that there are links to this with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and the cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which is pretty much like cyclic vomiting problem that we're having more and more of. Well, the theory is that it's destabilizing, our diets are destabilizing the cell membranes, and so they're malfunctioning. So again, too much omega-6 fatty acids overwork it, so the suggestions are that you avoid fried foods, hydrogenated fats, and some seed oils. Sugar is pro-inflammatory and can also raise your risk of heart attack or stroke up to 38%. You need to limit alcohol. It can disrupt your sleep cycle, it can cause inflammation, and it's associated with 7 different types of cancers. It's also important to stay hydrated. Did you know that constipation can raise your risk of major adverse cardiac events by 34%? So yeah, keep on drinking, but just not alcohol. So how do we fix that? What do you want to eat? Turns out that hemp seed has the perfect ratio of omega-3 and 6 fatty acids to produce the endocannabinoids. It also has really good fiber. It also has really good protein. I suggest anybody who wants to try, just eat hemp seed every day. Chia and flax also have some good balanced omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. Nuts like walnuts and macadamias, fatty fish, and eggs. There are some foods that are considered to have anti-inflammatory properties, and spices. So apples, here we go. This is the first list that the apples show up on, and they show up on a bunch of lists. So apples and berries, citrus, like lemons and pineapple, black pepper, ginger, olena, like certain herbs like basil, oregano, and garlic, and cacao. There's some foods that might help keep your body's THC, the anandamide, in your system longer, and might be useful in helping ease pain, anxiety, and inflammation. So again, the apple a day, the berries, olena, onions, And CBD has helps preserve your body's THC. There are a couple of foods that might preserve both your body's THC and the 2-AG, and that's noni fruit juice and black pepper, but maybe only if you're a mouse, because that was a mouse study. There are some foods that can reduce inflammation, and these are fermented foods. Are most people familiar with prebiotics and probiotics and the difference between them? Okay, great. So turns out sour poi has both pre and probiotics, and there are good sources of prebiotics like, oh, apples. Your apples showed up again, okay. And bananas, garlic, and onions. And then probiotics like kimchi, miso, and yogurt. And the lactobacillus acidophilus study showed that it could modulate intestinal pain by way of the opioid receptors and also the endocannabinoid receptors. And THC, I saw a statement in a book that I trust that THC might also be a probiotic, but I couldn't find the research backing that up, so it's a maybe. The diet that's considered to be the healthiest for your endocannabinoid system is the Mediterranean diet. And I'm just fortunate enough that I married an Italian man who loves to cook. And so I eat a lot of Mediterranean food and like, you know, olive oil and fish and lots of fresh fruits and veggies. And so that's, yeah, maybe look to that pyramid. So that's it as far as why it's important to keep your ECS healthy and a few tips on diet and activities that might help. Let's take a minute to just look at the plant chemistry. So the three main types of phytochemicals in cannabis sativa are the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and the flavonoids. And most people are familiar with at least two of the cannabinoids, THC and CBD. But there are acidic forms of both of those. So if you were to pick a leaf or a flower off of a plant, you would be getting a lot of the acidic form, the THCA, which is actually a more potent form of THC as far as pain reduction, possibly muscle relaxation, and anti-inflammatory properties than the aged or heated THC products. So there are patients that juice their cannabis and use the raw form more so than the other forms. There's also an acidic form of CBD that's probably more potent than the regular CBD. All cannabinoids, there's 166 of them, are considered to have neuroprotective and antioxidant properties. Let's look at the terpenes. How many people have heard of terpenes? I imagine, yep, terpenes. Okay, good. So these are the plant's essential oils. So if you know anything about aromatherapy, if you've ever used lavender to help you sleep, or a cup of chamomile tea, or any of that, you're using the plant's essential oils. So this is what gives the plant its distinct aromas and flavors. Terpenes are found in all fruits, flowers, herbs, and trees. Many of these have potential therapeutic value, and we also know that some of them are responsible for some of the side effects. There's one called myrcene, which we think is responsible for the side effect called couch lock, where people get locked down in the couch and it's hard to get out. So flavonoids also have medicinal properties, or at least potential. This is what gives the plant the colors, but can be used for treating pain and inflammation. And there's a unique set of flavonoids called canflavins in cannabis. And there's canflavins A, B, and C. There are patents on cancer treatments for them. A physician in Jamaica took out a patent on these canflavins. But there's a theory that all of these work better together than separately, and it's called the entourage effect. But I just like to call it synergy. It's not a true entourage effect. So the main questions that people ask me are, what do I use to treat this, this, and this? You know, and how do I use it? Well, the starting point for picking out what medicine you want to use is looking at what's called a chemotype. And cannabinoids are grouped by the most abundant cannabinoids. So there are THC dominant strains, there are strains that have almost equal ratios of THC and CBD, and then of course the CBD dominant type, which are the hemp derived types. And I have a book about that at my booth if you want to come see it. So here are a couple of the terpenes. So I told you about myrcene. It's for pain management, inflammation. It might help improve the absorption of THC in the lungs and increase the permeability of the blood-brain barrier. Like I said, it can be sedating, in the couch lock, but it's also found in carrots, lemongrass, pomegranates, and in hops. So real hoppy beers probably tend to be the most sedating ones. But it's also found in mangoes, and people have a theory that if they eat a lot of mangoes, that it's going to help improve the absorption of THC in their brain. And I'm not sure it's really happening, but it's a theory. So another terpene which is pretty important to know about is called beta-caryophyllene. And it has many, many medicinal properties, and this works directly on your CB2 receptors, so your immune function receptors, to help increase your levels of the 2-AG. This is found in basil, oregano, and parsley, in cardamom, cloves, and hops. And this is what the drug black pepper. Black pepper, black pepper. I use a lot of black pepper. But this is what the drug sniffing dog is sniffing. It's beta-caryophyllene, because THC and CBD don't have an odor. So some clinicians have put together formulas that they feel work best. So they think that both pairing beta-caryophyllene and myrcene are more useful in treating sleep issues and pain management, and for insomnia to include one that's called linalool, which is found in lavender. And there are no high-quality studies showing these to be true, but I think might help us design studies to determine which terpenes you might want to be looking for in your cannabis. So I think that's pretty much the end of a huge data dump. So thank you for listening, and does anyone have any questions? One in the back. So the question is, if you're looking for myrcene in your products, but like, how can you know if it has high myrcene? Yeah, you have to see the lab test results. And so initially when the dispensaries opened up, I asked them to please provide this information to the patients. You know, show them the lab test results so that you can help them choose, like if they want. And I was telling the patients, go in there asking for certain, terpenes, but unless you see the lab test results and you know what a significant amount is, well, there are actually some products. I sent my husband to a dispensary in another state, and I asked them specifically, I want something, I was for sleep, that has, a low amount of THC and these terpenes in it. I wanted the myrcene and I wanted the linalool, and he found it. He did find it, but it's I don't know how common it is, but you probably have to call around to the dispensaries and find out if they stock it. Yeah, I don't know. It was in Maryland, so I don't know about local dispensaries if they stock anything like that. But and what works for one person doesn't always work for everybody. You gotta. It's a lot of trial and error in this. Yes, and yes. Sure. I'm sorry. Okay. Let me see if I can find that in my. Yeah, there are a lot of. So. Oh, wrong one, this one. Here we go. Okay. So all cannabis is cannabis sativa L. There are subspecies. There's another cannabis sativa, there's a cannabis indica, and there's a cannabis ruderalis. The sativas tend to be taller, like trees up to 20 feet. They have thinner leaves and they're valued for their medicines. Cannabis sativas are shorter, shrubbier plants with fatter leaves, and they're also valued for their medicines. They both can be high in THC resins and drug type, considered to be drug type, whereas the ruderalis is valued for its production of flowers. It's flowers more often. So most of what you get are hybrids. I don't know that there's any true sativa strains, indica strains, or and you know, ruderalis is like just a ditchweed, but it's more the morphology of the plant and not the chemistry of the plant that makes the difference between a sativa and an indica. So you can't tell a patient a sativa is going to keep you awake or give you a head high and an indica a body buzz, because it doesn't work that way. So cannabis sativa is also industrial hemp. So this has low THC. It has to be 0.3% by dry weight, and this is regulated by the USDA. We do have safety concerns when using these products because all types, well, with all types, because they're considered to be phytoremediators, which means as they grow, they suck the toxins out of the soil, and especially heavy metals. It was used in Chernobyl to help remediate the soils in Chernobyl after the nuclear accident, yeah. So you don't want to concentrate these and make these into medicines. So we need to learn how to read labels, we need to know our source. The medicines are produced in these frosty resin glands called the trichomes. And these are in the flowers. These produce lots and lots of sticky, fatty chemicals. And they're produced, the best medicines are produced by unfertilized female flowers. A single male can ruin your entire crop by turning it into seeds. So the term sinsemilla is, means no seeds. Does that help answer your question between the differences of indica, sativa? Yes. Okay. Okay. So I have some charts like this at my booth if you'd like to have one. So the mother molecule is CBGA. And in the raw form, CBGA produces THCA, CBDA, and a CBCA. It's only when it's heated or aged that it turns into the delta 9 THC and the regular form of CBD. And then as they degrade, they become other cannabinoids also. So the acidic form of THC, the THCA, is not psychoactive. So if you took a leaf or a flower off of a plant and ate it, you shouldn't get high. So that's why some patients juice it, and some patients try to do cold extractions so that to avoid heating it. I just chew on a dried bud, and I can get a fair amount of THCA just by chewing on a dried bud. I use that for if I have like dental issues or just pain and inflammation, or just need to calm down a little bit sometimes, you know. So you can make it into teas. You can, yeah, there are ways, there are recipes that you can do it, or use the roots. So, like I said, it only becomes psychoactive, the delta 9, when it's heated, like if you smoke it or if it's aged, or if you put it in your oven to decarboxylate it. And then if you ingest it, a delta 9 THC, once it hits your liver converts it into a much more potent form. It can be like 5 times stronger if you eat it. So that's why dosing edibles is a little bit trickier than if you just inhale it. And does that answer that question? Great. Okay, yes, Dee. Electroacupuncture. There's electricity applied to the, to the needle. Yep.
So with those, can you just call around and ask for acupuncturists, do they provide
I guess so. I don't know. I've never had it done. It sounds like something I might want to try, but I just, have not. Okay, any questions? Thank you again. I really appreciate you being here. Up my day.
Oh, good.
Oh, look, you. There then. Oh, really? What kind?
The sunflowers, remember the seeds that we had that we started?
No, what's sunflower? Oh.
Remember the sunflower seeds? We all got the little pot, and we had 3 sunflower seeds in there.
Wow.
Remember our growing class?
Oh, no, I didn't come to the class.
Oh, you did?
No.
That's why you remember it.
That's right. So that's what they have you do. I did not know that.
Well, it was all a demonstration.
No, I was just at the one at the art place. The,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Last year. Okay. But anyway, I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to more of those classes.
I know it's a lot. It's an information dump of like, it's a lot of information. But
Some
you
is
know
better
what?
than none. You know?
I think so.
Whatever we can learn will help us. You know, I was wondering about memory.
Oh, yeah.
You think just taking a few puffs off on cannabis is enough to help ward off like dementia?
No.
Oh, you have to do more.
No, I wouldn't smoke it. I would probably use a good oil and just put a few drops under your tongue, or squirtful under your tongue every morning and hold it there to absorb it.
The oil that they sell at the dispensary, oil that's been, that comes from the leaves.
When you come to my booth, I'll show you. There's a good company. Well, I'll show you what one of the doctors is doing. Unfortunately, with dementia care.
Oil like